In 1996, California voters passed Proposition 215, allowing physicians to recommend marijuana for medical purposes. To date, as I understand, 10 states have enacted medical marijuana legislation that is actually being implemented. And a total of 36 states and the District of Columbia have formally recognized in various ways the value of medical marijuana. A year ago, the Ninth Circuit, U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that doctors have a constitutional right to discuss marijuana with their patients. However, refusing to accept the will of the electorate, the federal government has been fighting back. Earlier this year, Oakland resident Ed Rosenthal was the central target of the federal government's campaign to destroy legal medical marijuana in California. The case and subsequent verdict against Rosenthal was based on withholding key information from the jury, including the fact that Mr. Rosenthal had been deputized by the City of Oakland under California law, specifically to attend to the seriously ill. In the case, Mr. Rosenthal faced a sentence of 60 years in federal prison. However, facing subsequent public outrage about the case, including a public protest by the juries themselves, the presiding judge handed down a sentence of only 1 day in jail and a nominal fine. But Ed Rosenthal remains a convicted felon who is currently seeking to have his sentence overturned in a state with 3 strikes and you're out. Interestingly enough, in the current recall election in California, all of the major candidates from across the political spectrum, including those that have dropped out, have endorsed the legality of medical marijuana. How times change. Clearly, this is a reflection of the fact that over 70% of the public supports medical marijuana. Not to be discouraged, however, the Department of Justice has since asked the U.S. Supreme Court to allow it to punish medical doctors who recommend marijuana, and the DEA continues to raid and close down clinics. Meanwhile, Congressman Barney Frank and Sam Farr have each submitted bills respectively to reduce the federal classification of marijuana, to decriminalize its medicinal use, and to allow defendants in federal cases to claim compliance with state laws. Unfortunately, neither bill probably has much chance yet of passage. There are many questions to ask about federal policies, state policies, who benefits, who loses. Is California leading the nation? What kind of views are actually being presented and based on what? And what about the lives of the people who are suffering from cancer, AIDS, MS, and many other serious ailments? What happens to them in the meantime? Our independent policy forum this evening assembles several of the foremost experts to discuss the past, present, and future of medical marijuana. So I'd like to introduce our speakers. Please hold your applause until I complete the introduction. First, to my left, your right, is Ed Rosenthal, the noted activist and best-selling author who's been a key pioneer, as you all know, of the movement for medical marijuana. In 30 years of study, writing, and activism, he's become a trusted expert on marijuana use and social policy. He's also co-author of the important book which you're featuring this evening, called Why Marijuana Should Be Legal, and there are copies on the front table. And he's written over a dozen other books on the subject. To his left, again your right, is Donald Abrams. Ron McCoon. Rob is Professor of Law and Public Policy at the Goldman School of Public Policy at the University of California, Berkeley, and co-author of the other book that we are featuring this evening called Drug War Heresies from Cambridge University Press. He was formerly a behavioral scientist at the Institute for Civil Justice and the Drug Policy Research Center at RAND Corporation. He's one of the world's foremost authorities on drug policy. To my right is Edwin Dobb. Ed is contributing editor to Harper's Magazine. His writings on civil liberties have been published in Harper's, Amnesty Now, and San Francisco Magazine. He was formerly senior editor of The Sciences. He writes for New York Times Magazine and is a visiting lecturer at the Graduate School of Journalism, also at UC Berkeley. Finally, I want to introduce to his right, your left again, Donald Abrams. Don is Professor of Clinical Medicine at the University of California here in San Francisco and one of the leading researchers in the world on medical marijuana. He's also Assistant Director of the AIDS Program at San Francisco General Hospital, and since 1981 has been involved in several landmark studies on HIV and AIDS. He's conducted clinical trials of marijuana since 1997, including trials with grants from the National Institute of Health. So please join with me in welcoming our speakers. Before we begin, a couple of quick program matters I want to mention. After our discussion, we will have questions from the audience. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce Ed Rosenthal.
First thing, I'd like to thank the Independent Institute for sponsoring this forum and creating it, and I think that this is pretty incredible, and especially you, David, and also Bill Sandover, who's here. They've just done so much work in getting this together. Inspiring. And I'd like to thank everybody who's here, and in fact the entire community, because the reason why I am here and can be here tonight is because I was only given a one-day sentence, and that is because of you. It wasn't because of the judge, it wasn't because of any of the legal things. It was because of the pressure that the community and the media placed on the court system. So I'd like to give you a hearty thanks for that. Now, this issue, the issue of medical marijuana, is of prime importance to perhaps 100,000 Californians who use marijuana in one way or another for their health, who have been given recommendations by doctors, and it may improve the quality of their life, it may maintain their health, or it may actually keep them alive. And so this is not just a ruse issue or something like that. And this issue not only affects Californians, but also throughout the nation. And there are probably somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million people who use marijuana medically, whether or not they have a recommendation for it. Now, I'd like to go into a little bit about my case. As you know, I was convicted on 3 counts, and that is cultivating marijuana, maintaining a place where marijuana is cultivated, and also conspiracy to cultivate marijuana. And as you know, this was a result of a jury that was kept ignorant of the facts of the case, that I was deputized by the City of Oakland, that I was providing medical marijuana, that I was told by the city that I was immune from prosecution. And once the jury found this out, when they went home and read the newspapers that they hadn't been reading while they were jurors, within hours they got back to the media and repudiated their sentence. And of course that did not have a judicial meaning, but it certainly had a meaning to the media, and it certainly had a meaning to the public. Because, this case was not fought just on one level. It was fought on 2 levels, and that is, it was fought in the court, and so far we're losing the court case, but in the